I would like to welcome you here at EXO1 and share a little of my world with you. And there's a little surprise at the end. Let me tell you what you're going to hear in the next about 50 minutes. I'm going to give you a quick introduction. Then we're going to talk about the future of consulting, mentoring, coaching. Then I'm going to explain what the whole EXO1 thing is actually about. And at the very end, so please stay to the end, there is an offer, and that's just for you and just for today. So I hope you can pass it all through and make it all through to the very end. I am a serial community builder. I've been in advertising for over 20 years, and in the advertising life, I actually formed teams in global agencies. And then I stumbled across TED, and I was there from day one when they introduced the TEDx program, and TED invited me being TEDx ambassador. That involved me in a lot of TEDx events all over the world. Also brought me to San Francisco, where I co-founded the Silicon Valley Inspiration Tours. And years later, I expanded to New York, London, Tel Aviv, Dubai, Mumbai, and Hong Kong. Called it the Global Inspiration Tours. And I started a speaker coaching agency called My School of Talk. And after I was a little, I wouldn't say confused, but it was hard to explain in a few words what my job is and what I'm doing, I asked a friend. And that's important, right? When you don't know for yourself, even if you're often helping others, go and ask for a friend. So I asked a friend and he said, "Hey Niki, you're a business therapist." And I thought that resonates with me. And since then, I'm wearing this tag, business therapist, because I want to help you to understand what you're actually capable of and expand your personal career on new paths. We'll see. So again, in the next 30-40 minutes, you will judge, you will figure out if what I'm saying makes sense for you and you want to hear more of my journey. Let's jump right into it. I'm asking you one question to begin with. Can you actually agree that the consulting business is facing a similar journey than the advertising industry? Too many people are using too many buzzwords to sound smart. Too many people are using all these methodology terms without really being very disciplined what it actually means and where to go, and also following the process in a very disciplined way. And too many consultants are, I would call it stage savvy and not backstage hungry. What I mean is they want to be on the stage and have the lights shed on them rather than building the stage for others. And of course, that's creating something that we call fake consulting, and that's harming the whole industry. My passion is making you win as well. That's what I'm really burning for. I want you to be successful. I'm not competing, and I don't want you to compete with anyone else who's doing what you're doing, because there's enough to be done. The only competition we have is time. So we should be clear and razor sharp on our focus. So we're talking about the acceleration of the acceleration here. That basically means change forces are hitting in at exponential pace. And what I think, and a lot of people agree, is that humans are not ready for this. So my mission is to help a lot of people understand where is the journey going and what does this mean for you. So maybe we'll look at it from a timeline perspective. In the late 1900s, if you were up to latest technology, you were top of the race. So it was about understanding what's technology and how we can bring latest technology into a product, and then people will buy it. And this era brought up the Nokias, the Boeings, the Microsofts, the Siemens, the IBMs, and what? You know, all these companies. And then in the early 2000s, this is where we started calling the disruption area. Companies like Tesla, Airbnb, Alibaba, Google, Uber, Facebook, Apple, they grew large, and very often people or companies grew that were not in the same industry before. They came from a different industry. People who made this company came from a different industry, but they identified something that the people in the industry didn't see. And with that something, that changed the whole narrative. And then yes, of course, we all are aware of what happened 15 months ago. COVID changed everything. COVID hyper-accelerated a lot of things. So I think that a lot of things that would have happened in the next 5 years happened within a few months. So it was a hyper-accelerator. But at the same time, it shock froze a lot of people because it was kind of a confusion. I'm losing my business, what's going on? What does this mean for me? What's next for me? So we're in this era of redefining the game. It's a little chaotic, it's a little weird, it's a little uncertain, but it's a window. And we have to be aware that this window will close, or actually have to close very soon. Because we're all familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a beautiful summary of 16 things that we should change in the world, and a commitment, so it's 17 goals, that we'll focus on these 16 things together and create a better world together. So that basically means, hopefully very soon, we will have something like a new order. And let me tell you something, when you are 80 and you look back at your life and you can say to yourself that you have been architect of the future, you've missed out on a huge opportunity. So what is that opportunity? Or let's go into this narrative that I mentioned earlier, and that's kind of the future of people who consult people, people who coach and mentor entrepreneurs, business people, who think they see what's coming next. And I would like to start with getting back your feet on the ground to just let you know that most of you are actually in the reminder business. And that means if you keep on reminding people and they're not following, what does that mean for your language? What does it mean for your capabilities of articulating your vision, your journey? Because if people don't follow, it basically just means they don't believe, they don't trust, they don't dare. So what's behind that? And that needs to be, that's worth exploring. So if you're in the reminder business, you have to figure out why am I still in business, right? Probably you haven't started yesterday, so you've been reminding people for a longer time. It's important to start with self. But if you're into something new, you have to understand what does something new actually mean. And something new means it has to solve a problem for a certain amount of people. It has to be something the world hasn't seen before. It has to be maybe an unintended consequence of innovation. It has to be something that you can really call something new. And I often ask people, what is more important, an idea or a good execution? And most of the time people say a good execution. The reason for this, I think, is because too many people call something an idea that is not an idea. Too many people try to sell an idea that's not new, that doesn't change or improve the life of many people, that doesn't really solve a problem, that might not even make money. That's not an idea. So you have to understand, if I try to sell something new, the bar is high for something new. And that's, I think, important to know. And then if we go into something new, we have to be ready for inconvenient conversation. We have to know that we're going to face headwind. My personal rule by thumb, if your client agrees, your suggestion is not radical enough. It's kind of a feeling that you know if your client disagrees, that you might be on a good journey, that you might be on a path, that you might be hitting the hammer on the head, the nail on the head. I want to remind you that fire was the biggest invention of mankind. Fire changed the way we eat. We could fabricate tools. We could do a lot of things differently with fire. And you guys are all fire starters. And that means you also carry a responsibility. I don't know if you're familiar with the Johannes Gutenberg moment. Johannes Gutenberg invented the Bible. Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing machine. And that created an exponential growth of the Catholic Church because they could print the Bible. They didn't need to go to people and knock on households and tell people about God and where to follow and the ideas and what it's all behind, and they are part of a community. They printed out the Bible, distributed it, and had an exponential growth. And this is called a Johannes Gutenberg moment. Today, we have 15 of these every given moment. So it's important to know that we're in the era of fire starters. We're in the era of fundamental inventions. And it's weird because we think we already have everything, right? But no, we're in the era of fundamental inventions. A big buzzword, and I mentioned buzzwords earlier, is resilience. And I think we all should be resilient, but we should be aware that resilience is a shield and not a weapon. You have to be resilient to actually be capable of innovation. You have to be resilient to actually be ready for all the headwind that I mentioned earlier, and for all the naysayers, and all for the bad vibes and bad energy that will come like an avalanche against you when you come up with something that's new, when you come up with something people haven't seen before. We're in a time where problems need to be solved pre-problem. And that's a huge issue, right? We're talking about the healthcare system, but we're actually in the sick care system. I think 80% is the number of global budgets of science go into making people healthy, and only 20%, if even, are into keep staying healthy. So we have to go away from a healthcare system, from a sick care system to an actual healthcare system. We have to go away from problems need to be solved when they occur to I have to predict your future problem and solve it today, so you don't even know that this would have occurred as a problem in your life. And if we're not capable of solving problems, we're not going to be in business in 3 years from today. And that basically means that we have to live 5 years ahead of technology. We have to understand that all we do today is about what's going to happen in our industry in 5 years. And everything between today and 5 years, that's not leadership agenda. You should have your management, you should have your people who put down fires of today and come up with products and campaigns for the next 6 months or 12 months. You should, if you run your organization, you help people run your organization, you take them into this mindset of living 5 years ahead of technology. And it's an easy test. Let me share one story with you. It's an easy test to understand if your client, if your customer, if the people you work for or consult are actually living in this mindset. I was coaching a pharmaceutical company in Germany, and there were 150 people in the room. We did a 2 days workshop. It was very intense, big fun. And I asked them, who of you thinks that 3D printing will play a major role in healthcare in the future? By show of hands. And of course, everyone's hands was up. So my next question was, where is your 3D printer? And of course, they didn't have a 3D printer. They knew that the 3D printing will play a major role, or additive manufacturing in pharmaceuticals, but they didn't have a 3D printer to tinker around, to figure out what does this mean, or will this mean for them in the future. Because if you're convinced that additive manufacturing will shape your industry in 5 years from today, you can't wait 5 years because someone else is already having the 3D printer and tinkering around. They they might make stupid things with it. But in 5 years, they're so far ahead, we'll have no chance to catch up. And then we're in this world of transition, and that means there's a huge market for retrofit. There's a huge market for things that we have today, and we have to change certain elements to make them ready for what might come a generation later. This is old guys' business. So if you work with people where you know they have an old mindset, they're not too progressive, figure out how they can retrofit, how they can tap into a market where retrofit is the name of the game. Whereas when you work with younger people, when you work with people who are visionaries and open to change, you have to help them understand that everything that determines their future, if they want to be ahead of the game, is a result of a data-driven business. So they have to data build. For example, when we look into the automotive business, retrofit people take the engine and replace it with an electric engine, and the tank and replace it with batteries. Data build people think that a car is a device on the street, so we should equip it with sensors to take weather, street condition, air quality, wind, whatever you'd like, as an information that's relevant for different industries, and make sure that the car stays in motion, because that's what the cars are built for, to drive, so they should always stay in motion. And that's a huge difference, right? Depends on where your customers are, your clients are, you can put them in either of the directions. Both have a market for the next few years. If you're in this data mindset, this next thing you have to understand is you have to get out of the hardware business. Hardware is expensive and not a money bringer, and it's basically very difficult. But software is where you constantly generate information in business. Because every activity that we're doing produces information, and that's data. And there are a lot of organizations who are rich on data, but they're not smart on data. Having a lot of data doesn't mean that you're ahead of the curve. And actually, the opposite is true. Very often people don't have, or organizations who are smart on data don't have a lot of data, but they know exactly what is this data telling me. And every future decision is determined by information, hence data. So what makes a future success? What makes a successful endeavor, journey, life? And I think you have to have a calling, a belonging, and a story. And a calling means this is the why. This is why are you doing this? What's driving you? What is your passion, your mission? What is your North Star? That's the why. The belonging is the community. That's being part of someone, part of something. I have seen so many businesses being successful, not because of a good product, but because they created community. So people gravitated to this organization, and that already gave you the feeling you're part of something bigger than yourself. TED is a great product, I'm not saying this, but I think part of the TEDx growth and the TEDx success, because everyone who was involved in the TEDx program knew that they're part of something bigger. A bigger idea, a bigger mission, and they are part of that. Community is really important. How much do you look at community when you look at business? And the third one is story, and with story I mean two things. One is you have to have some sort of a narrative, but the second, that's even more important, you have to be able to articulate it. I see so many people standing, or managers or presidents or boards standing on a stage, which basically means they stand in front of the company, represent the company, and it's embarrassing how they speak and articulate their ideas. It feels like they're bored by their own talk. Seriously? How do you think you can make someone care if you don't care? And if I care, I figure out a way how I can articulate my thoughts, my visions, my ideas, so you care as well. Because if I care, and I just put it there, that's not the body language of caring, so you won't care. So, calling, belonging, and story, truly important. And then there's something that's stolen from different organizations called Ruthless Prioritization. And I really like the idea of Ruthless Prioritization. It basically means that you put emotions aside, and you're realizing that all that matters is reaching the end goal and fulfilling internal and external customers' needs. We have too much of our emotions standing in way of moving on. And my last advice is be you. And be you basically means that you should know who you want to be, because we have learned to bend ourselves into a different version of ourselves. And that means that we attract these kind of people, and that's not us, or these kind of situations, or these kind of jobs. But the more you are who you are, the more you attract people you come along with well, the more you attract situations you can deal with, and the more attract you jobs you really want to do. My life hack to get closer to the person I want to be is every night when I go to bed, I ask myself, was today a good snapshot of myself? Was I the person I want to be? And the more you ask yourself this question, the more you go into this figuring out if you've been the person you want to be, the more you become that person. So with all of that, I have established something I call LEAD, and it's the Niki Skene method, and I'd like to explain a little about that, and I'll give you a little preview of what LEAD actually is. Because I want this to be your winning weapon. So, LEAD is an acronym for leadership, experience, authority, and direction. And leadership means mindset. So what is a leader's mindset? Experience, this is where we're talking about method. And authority, we're talking about the structure. How can your structure actually make innovation possible? And direction is what I mentioned earlier, the community. When we go into leadership, we want to talk about what it means to go all forward and not ask yourself, what's in it for me? You have to unlearn. I love to quote Astro Taylor, who says, the illiterate of the future are not those who can't read and write, but those who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. And a very good Again, life hack for this: if someone asks you if you read a book or watched a movie and you did, don't say yes. Answer, tell me about it. Because if you say yes, the conversation is basically over, but if you say no or tell me about it, you might hear an element of it, a perspective of it, that you haven't looked at before like that. And that grows your horizon, that grows your vision, and expands your spectrum. And leadership skill, and that's also something that we talk when we talk about the lead part, the L of the leader part, is how to design intrinsic motivation. I mentioned it earlier, the art of making things important. It's hugely important. When we talk about experience, we need to talk about experiments. We need to talk about things that we don't know if they're going to work and what they will learn us. Seth Godin said, leadership is the art of doing something that might not work. I love that. I love to paraphrase him here. We have to talk about the archetypes of idea I mentioned earlier. What is actually an idea? So there are 3 archetypes of an idea. One, the world hasn't seen before. Another one, the world hasn't seen that way before. And the third one, something we should not accept anymore. And that's a very nice archetype of ideation. I'm going to go into this when we talk about lead. And then also part of the experience is the articulation, the skills of articulating, the talk like TED, as you can read it in many books, skills of public speaking. When we talk about authority, it's about how to attract the right people, how to make sure that you have more external delivery than internal processes, and of course also how to stay dynamic and open to change. Because we're not talking about an update, we're not talking about something that you can download, implement, roll out. We're talking about a new mindset that basically constantly means in and out at fast time. And then direction, again, how can you create alliances? How you can make sure that people want to join you? What needs to be done to actually create and form community? And that's something that's hugely important. So what's this going to be about? It's going to be a set of instructional videos and tools that you can use. And I want to give you everything you need so you can actually also educate people on it. It's basically open source. You can take it, understand it, if it makes sense for you, and make it yours and tell others about it. We're coming to the final part of your session. And I'm glad that you're still there, and I hope you're enjoying it so far. I hope it actually makes sense for you, what I'm talking about. And that's, what is this XO1 thing? I had this idea of doing everything that giving actually everything that I have learned in the past 25 years of my work, and making it available for a community. I want to curate sessions. I want to understand that update is not a download, but a power plug. It basically means, right, when you're plugged in, you have power, and when you're not plugged in, you don't have power. And I want to be that plug for you. I want to be your constant influx of inspiration. The idea is that we meet every week for a session that I curate, but it also means if you're part of the community, you can bring up someone and say, hey, there's this guy or girl, woman or lady I'd like to introduce to the community, and you can run a session. It also can entail that you want to learn something about something new, a new technology, and so you ask me, say, hey Niki, can we invite someone talking about, I don't know, CRISPR, Cas9, exponential technologies, and I'll go out in my networks and make sure that we have someone who's a top caliber in this space and inspire you. Every month we meet on an XO1 at one session, which I really like. It's a 1 a.m. session. And if you show up at a 1 a.m. session, there is one thing I know for sure: you are committed. This is a personal growth session. This is about you. This is just for you. And I'm just asking you 7 questions to make sure you move away everything that shouldn't be in your life, to go straight forward where you should go, where your determination is. I love that one. And then of course, when it's easier, we will have an in-person meeting or in hybrids. So we also meet in real. We don't only want to meet in virtual reality, in Zoom sessions, in digital connections. We also want to meet in real. And that's the idea. The themes are Think National, International. So we talk about Africa, India, and China. And then we talk about future scenarios of food, of healthcare, of mobility, of money, of energy, of retail. As I said before, things you come up where you'd like to talk about. We talk about the mindset, the soft skills, the ideas of the catalyst, the public speaking, the leadership skills, all these very important skills that are also element of the lead of the Niki Skene method. And then we talk about exponential technologies, something hugely important, because it's not that your business derives out of technology, but it's important to know what technology is available and what needs to be invented for the problem you like to solve. And then we have also demo days with startups, because it's always refreshing to hear and learn what companies of the future are working on. One element of a community is the element of thinking alike. And I have spent a lot of time in research, and I've visited other communities to come up with principles I think are important. So everyone who's part of the X01 community also endorses these principles. The major principle is serving is a privilege. I think you live a different mindset if you understand that everyone who's listening to you doesn't listen to you because you have authority, but because they made this very conscious decision of investing a certain amount of lifetime listening to you. When you're on a stage talking to someone, it's a privilege and not a right. I think it's important that we should connect and not judge. I think it's important to be deal positive. This is also a community where you can talk business, where you can ask people, say, hey, I want this from you. I think there are a lot of communities where it's forbidden to talk business, and that makes a lot of sense in their culture, but for here I think it's important to know that you can also talk about business. And I want to endorse the idea to play it forward. When someone asks me for a favor, I don't ask what's in it for me. If I have time, I just do it. And if everyone would do this, very often you would be also in a situation asking someone, or now and then, you would be in the situation of asking someone, and then you also know that that person will say yes without asking what's in it for him or her. I want you to embrace serendipity. Sometimes I will invite for a session where you don't know what's happening there. Sometimes we will go to a conference where we don't know who's speaking or who else is attending. And I think it's important to embrace serendipity, important to admit to things, to go to a conference where you don't know who's speaking, to go to online events where you don't know what's happening there. Right? And just to test waters, figure out, I don't know, I didn't expect that, but the more you expect, the more you judge if it delivers up to your expectation, the more you go with an open mind, the more you're going to get surprised. Sharing is caring. There is nothing that we have to say. Each one teach one, which basically means that everything that I'm sharing is open source, and I invite you to share it as well. And if that goes in both directions, we both learn from each other. I want us to be inclusive and not exclusive. This is not an elite community. This is a community where everyone can be part of. And I want everyone to know that I want you to shine. And if everyone wants everyone to shine, that actually means that we help each other to grow and build the stage for each other. Lastly, feedback is great, which basically means that if you like it, you should tell everyone, and if you dislike it, you should tell the person who did something you don't like. And if that's me, please approach me, tell me. If what I'm saying and what I'm sharing doesn't make sense for you, please tell it to me so I can grow and I can get better. I have to learn so much. And if you like it, get out there and tell it others so we can be more. And this is a community that's better if there are more people part of it. I think that pretty much wraps it up, and I want to say thank you for being here and for listening to my thoughts and ideas. And as I said before, I have one more thing for you, one little bonus. X01 is a community where everyone who's part of the community pays €100 per month. And then you will have a lifetime opportunity to pay €15,000, and then you will be there forever. And you will learn soon that 15,000 is a very good investment to be there forever. But as we're starting, I lowered the 15,000 to 1,200 because I think an investment for 1 year of membership is reasonable to commit both ends. For me to want that part of the community to be there forever, and for you to have a lower risk of embarking something you might not enjoy, something might not add value, right? I'm not adding value for everyone, but I hope I add value for you. So here's my very special offer. If you sign up from this webinar, if you reach out for us from this webinar, you get the lifetime membership, and that means being part of the XO1 community forever, and not for just a month or 2 months, but forever, for only 900 euro. So not even 1,000 euros, so 900 euro, and you're part of our community forever. And that means you have access to every session. That means you get coachings from me, so these lifetime members we have individual sessions. That means that you get discount on every activities. That means that you will automatically receive books when we have speakers who published a book. I buy a book for everyone in the room. You get a book of those. It means many things, and even more to grow. And that all for a lifetime for 900 euro. I'm not sure if that's an offer you can say no to. So if you agree that that makes sense, please follow everything that comes after this video and sign up. And I'm looking forward to see you at one of our next XO1 sessions. Thank you.